Say that. Somebody say, I'm going to make my marriage work. You know, you have the power to make your marriage work. There's no mystery around it. There's no, it's not one of those things that you put anointing oil on. It's you going home with tools and telling yourself, I'm going to apply the tools that I've been given. So I'm going to go into the third sermon of the Marriage Institute. Songs of Solomon chapter 8 verse 7, if you've got your Bibles. Songs of Solomon. Before I read that text, I began this series 2 weeks ago by telling you that it's not just that people are divorcing. It's not just that people are getting divorced. That's no longer big news. What is now big news is that people are having divorce parties. Did anybody remember me saying that last 2 weeks? People are now, growing up, divorce was like a very rare thing. Divorce was like, you hear uncle this is divorce, auntie this is divorce, and it kind of is kept under the hood. But to come to a generation, you're going to understand what I'm saying, to come to a generation where people are no longer horrified about divorce, they are so desensitized. Somebody say desensitized. They are so desensitized to divorce that they are going to throw a divorce party. They're going to throw a divorce party and invite their friends and go to the shop, buy a gown for the divorce, buy a tuxedo for the divorce, get caterers for the divorce, that's crazy. And then my brother turned up last week and gave us another dimension to the divorce story. He's a lawyer in Abuja. He says that the rate of divorce in the countries or in Abuja is skyrocketed. And when you look at the statistics, it is mostly Christians. It's the majority of this rise in the statistics of divorce is coming from men and women who go to church every Sunday. It's coming from Christians. It's coming from folks who call the name of Jesus. And that is a paradox, because contained in this holy book are tools to make the marriage work. So it's a paradox that the men and women who have been given the best tools to make their marriage work are men and women who don't know what to do with their marriage. Before we go into my sermon today, I don't speak the same language with my wife. We share English as our common language. Her dad's from Gabon, her mom's from Ghana, and so and they live their life in England. So I don't have a native language to share with my wife. And there are times when we would go to parties or something, and maybe the kids are not behaving well, and she wants to tell me something that nobody else can hear. Yeah, she wants to tell me something that nobody else can hear. She can't, because we are stuck with English. And so we know the power of languages, and I'm going to explain it this way as I begin to make an introduction to this sermon. My wife will go to market in Nigeria. She's been to more markets than I've been to. My wife's been to Ikori market to buy crayfish. She'll tell me the market and what she goes to buy. This is a foreign woman. Mile 12. She walk around mile 12. There's no market in Lagos that Claudine hasn't been to. But every time she's going to the market, she'll look at the church and her friends and choose someone to follow her to the market. I asked her one time, why do you always choose this person to follow me to the market? She said, I don't go to the market without somebody who speaks the native language. I said, why is that? She said, you do not understand the kind of bargains you can get by speaking the language of the seller. I'm like, wow, listen, I'm the most stupid buyer. Listen, when they see me coming to the market, they say, Mugu is coming. Look at him, he's coming. I buy all kinds of things. My wife, I come back, she said, how much did you buy this? I said, I bought this for 2,000 naira. She said, you wreck this family. You wreck this is 250 naira you're buying for 2,000 naira. But this woman goes to the market, she picks one lady in church or one guy in church. Back in our previous church, was a particular guy she take. Why do you always take this guy? She said, I want to go to the market with someone who knows the language, because the moment a seller is selling something to you and you connect with them in their native language, the dynamics changes. The dynamics changes. In fact, she told me that especially the Hausa Fulani people, you turn into an Hausa Fulani shop and you manage Brother Patrick, Brother Patrick. And Fulani. I don't know what he's doing here. Maybe we need to ship him down to Zamfara. Go start a cornerstone church in Zamfara and pray for him that Boko Haram don't get him. But my wife Will tell me that if you run into an Hausa Fulani shop, the ones who sell yam or something, and you open your mouth and you start speaking their language, my God, they want to give you the thing almost for free. You know, you could take as many as you want, because there's something about the language. Somebody said there's something about the language. So even in London, so you know, London is a cosmopolitan, metropolitan city, and people are from all over the place. So a lot of times you don't even you hardly find people from your own area. So every now and then, you know, I'm in a London bus. I'm going to work, or I'm going to college, I'm going to university, and you know, you're in those, you know, the double-decker London bus. So you're sitting down there, and then you glance, the guy sitting here, you look at him, you don't like his face. Be some yardie. This man who knows who don't like him, you do not like him, and then he picks up the phone, he makes a phone, he rings a number, he begins to speak, and it's your language. He's speaking your language, and suddenly, somebody say suddenly, suddenly that man you did not really like, or that woman you did not like, suddenly that man or that woman you kind of didn't really fancy, suddenly now you're taking interest in them. Because of what? Because of what? Because they are speaking your, somebody say they're speaking your native language. Suddenly you're waiting for them to finish the phone call, and you're walking up to them in the London bus, and you say, hey guy, you're from Oyo State? Wow, okay, you from Imo State? Where in Imo State are you from? And suddenly 5 minutes ago you did not find them fascinating. 5 minutes ago you did not find them likable, but suddenly the moment they spoke in, God help me this morning, the moment they spoke in your native language, a barrier is broken. There is now a connection on a deeper level. Somebody say connection on a deeper level. Now, so language is a powerful thing. Somebody say language is a powerful thing. And it's not just in the foreign land or in the arena of business that we find this phenomenon play out. You are going to find this phenomenon play out even in the arena of marriage. So we've looked at the statistics of divorce. We've said that a lot of times now people are celebrating divorce. We've said that Christians are even divorcing as much as the unbelievers are divorcing. What we are going to find in this teaching I'm going to teach this morning is that something known as the language of love. Somebody say the language of love. And if you are able to speak the language of love of your spouse, you are going to connect with them on a level deeper than you could have. So this morning, I'm going to be preaching a sermon I've entitled Love Languages. Somebody say Love Languages. Part 1 of it. This will be part 1 of it. Next week we'll try and finish it. It's quite long. Part 1 of it is Love Languages. Songs of Solomon or Songs of Songs. If you've got your Bibles, chapter 8, verse 7. Many waters cannot quench love, can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he will be utterly despised. Let's pray this morning. Heavenly Father, our marriages are struggling. Lord, I said it last week that our marriage is supposed to be our first testimony. And Lord, Satan attacks our marriage. He goes after it. And because we're not equipped with what we need, we grant him the space to destroy our marriage, wreck our testimony, destroy our legacy, and make a mess of us. Lord, this morning, I want you to preach this sermon. Holy Spirit, I want you to come into this sermon. And Lord, I'm just not preaching to entertain this morning. There's no time for entertainment. Lord, people are struggling. I ask that this word, like the love and respect marriage sermon, that it will go out with power, like the formidable force sermon, that it will go out with power. And people will take tools from this sermon and go home and make their marriage work. I pray this morning in Jesus' name. And the Cornerstone Church said, I want to begin by looking at the quest. It always begins with a quest. It begins with a man pursuing a woman. I've gone to pick up stories of how people pursued, every time I'm counseling couples or people invite me over for dinner or we're going out with people, one of the questions I'll ask a couple is a standard question, and I can't wait to ask it the moment I sit down with you people and we're eating or doing whatever we're doing. The next thing Pastor Emmanuel will ask is, how did you guys meet? I like to hear stories of how people met. I like, how did you meet? Where did you meet? How did it happen? When did she say yes? How did you know? I like those stories. They're very fascinating, because if you want to understand romance and love, then begin to pick up stories of how people met. How did you pursue? It always begins with a pursuit. It always begins with a quest. A man sees a woman, sees a girl in church, sees a girl in, hopefully not the nightclub, sees a girl on the street, sees a girl at work, sees a girl in school, and something in you, there's a captivation, something in you takes over. In fact, Solomon said there are 4 things he does not understand. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine Solomon, who was given the highest amount of wisdom in the universe, said there are 4 or 5 things I don't understand. And when they asked him, he said the way of a man after a woman. He said, I'm still trying to figure out a man pursuing a woman, a young man pursuing a woman, a man pursuing a woman. Solomon, the all-knowing Solomon says, I still can't figure it out. And I cannot agree with Solomon, because something possesses us when we find that person we think is going to be our life partner. Everything changes. You stop talking to your friends. You stop talking to your brothers and sisters. And and they know. They say, Emmanuel, what has happened? We don't see you anymore. Oh no, you don't see him anymore because he has seen someone. You don't see him anymore because he has seen someone. And that's the quest. Somebody say that's the quest. So here's Solomon, Proverbs 30 verse 19, the way of an eagle in the sky, the way of a serpent on a rock, the way of a sheep on the high seas. These are the things Solomon says, I don't understand. And he asks in there, he says, the way of a man with a virgin, the pursuit, the quest. And all of us here have a story of pursuit. Every married man here, every married woman here can tell a story of how he pursued me, or how she was pursued. And I remember, I've shared with you the story of how I pursued Claudine. I remember walking into KICC. This has been 1999, I think. And I'm in this big church. I'm here with my friend Moses. He will come to this church one of these days. And we just, we were just, we're young. We're trying to get married. I needed to get. So I see this girl down. I'm looking at this girl, one girl down. I say, Moses, who's that? Moses looks at me and says, look at her and I look at you. Look at her and look at you. Emmanuel, look at her and look at you. He said, Emmanuel, please cut your coat. Oh, God help me. Cut your coat according to your size. That's what he told me. So he's looking at my wife to be. He's looking at me and he's thinking, Emmanuel, you like to look at her. Look at how she looks and look at you. Look at you. Look at you. So I'm thinking, all right then, okay, let's see what goes on. I began the pursuit. Somebody say, begin the pursuit. Turn to your neighbor and say, begin the pursuit. So I began the pursuit. And in fact, Claudine told me one time that they began to think I was a spirit. I said, what? She said, everywhere she went, I appeared. She said her and her friends began to think this guy is a ghost. They will leave church and go to where's this Pizza Hut? Not the one, there's a Pizza Hut. So they will leave church and go to Pizza Hut, and as they're about to sit down, Emmanuel is sitting down there. She and her friends began to think this guy is a ghost. She would just turn the corner and I'm there. One time I ran into her in the supermarket. She's looking at me. No, I wasn't a ghost. I was pursuing. I wasn't a ghost, I was pursuing. There was something about the man before the wedding, pursuing a woman, doing everything for the woman, buying a card, everything. You spend time to. Let me tell you something. Me and Claudine broke the record for the amount of time spent on a telephone conversation. I called Claudine 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the night. This is London. I called her 8 o'clock in the night. 8 o'clock in the night. I'm in my house. She's in her house. I ring her 8 o'clock in the night. We started talking. It was dark. We kept talking. And the next thing I heard, she said, the morning. It's sunlight. We spoke from 8 o'clock in the night all the way to like 6 o'clock the next day. Why? Oh, that's pursuit. Somebody said that's pursuit. That's the quest. You're pursuing. Oh, I'm giving you. By the time I finish this, listen. By the time I finish this sermon, some of you are thinking data. That's what I'm hearing. By the time I finish this sermon, some of you learn how to pursue. Turn to your neighbor and say, learn how to pursue. So there's no kind of record. There's no kind of record we didn't break because I'm pursuing. And that's what happens when you are in love. Am I right? That's what happens when you're in love. And so even as I'm pursuing, she's still kind of not quite sure whether this big big-headed Nigerian is her husband. So I went back and I put together a plan. I'm working in IT then. I called this shipping company. I'm going somewhere with this sermon. I called this shipping company. I said, listen, I hear you guys do dinner on a ship. They say, yeah. I said, how much is it? They said, this amount of pounds. I pulled my credit card out. I paid for a dinner with Claudine on a ship. This ship goes around the Thames. Anybody been to London before? It goes around the Thames. So I go to Claudine's house. I pick her up. She said, where are we going? I said, I'm taking you out. I'm not taking you out to an akara joint. This is not some amala joint in K2. No. Don't do it. No. So I pick and listen to me. I'm going somewhere with this sermon. So I pick her up. We hit a Leytonstone station. We get on the train. The train stops us in embankment. We come out of embankment. We enter the ship. It's all white people. Table is a ship. It's a hotel in a ship. And we sat down and the ship is going. They're playing jazz and they're serving meals. I'm thinking, listen. This pursuit must end tonight. So by the time we exited, all that whole, your big head scares me, finished. All that, I'm not quite sure, is over. All that, you're Nigerian, are you doing, is over. And then I asked her whether she would boom, and before you know what's happening, my pursuit have brought a product. We are now on the altar. We are getting married, and we're getting married in 2002. And I bet you that everyone here has a pursuit story. But the problem is that the quest turns into a quagmire. The problem is that the quest turns into a quagmire, because every now and then, after you have seen how intense a man pursued a single woman, something goes wrong when they get married. You look at them 2 years later, you meet them 3 years later, you meet them 4 years later, and you're thinking, listen, they don't even want to be with each other anymore. You're wondering, you were the one pursuing this girl like your life depended on it. You're the one that will not go 2 hours without seeing this man. But now suddenly, somebody says suddenly now you can barely stand them. So that pursuit turns into a quagmire. I don't understand it. That pursuit now, you're thinking, listen, I've seen couples now that can barely stand each other, but I know when they pursued each other. I see couples now that, listen, they are barely tolerating each other, but I know when he was pursuing her. I know when she was being pursued. So it's a quagmire. Somebody says it's a quagmire. Why does the quest after the woman, why does the quest after the man become this quagmire? I'm no longer happy in this marriage. I'm no longer interested in this man. In fact, if not for the children, I would have left. And I'm thinking, I know when you pursued her. I know when you were being pursued. What has happened? Somebody say, what has happened? So that quagmire leads to a question, and we must ask that question this morning. That question is, what happens to love after the wedding? And I know I'm talking to people here. You know your marriage is in a mess, but you remember how fantastic it was when he was pursuing. When he couldn't go one day without seeing you. Now he's praying that you disappear. When she couldn't go 2 hours without hearing your phone call. Now she's thinking, just vanish. No, we have to investigate what happens between the quest. What turns a quest into what? Into a what? A quagmire. Why is that? The question we must ask this morning is, what happens to love after the wedding? I want the church to say that. I want you to say that. Want you ready to go? What happens to love after the wedding? What happens to love after the wedding? Why is that? Why is that? Our text says that many waters cannot quench love. But that's not true. Many waters couldn't quench love when they were dating. Many waters couldn't quench love when they were courting. But after the wedding, oftentimes we visit them again. Not only has love been quenched, for some people, love is dead. Am I talking to someone this morning? Now, you know why this marriage is important? This sermon is important. If you're married, you need this sermon. If you're not married, You need this sermon too. The question we must ask concerning this whole phenomenon of the quest turning into a quagmire is, what happens to love after the wedding? He pursued before the wedding. He did everything before the wedding. He couldn't go one day without talking to her before the wedding. She couldn't stand 2 minutes without seeing him before the wedding. But then after the wedding, you meet them 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they can hardly sit in church together. They can hardly be in the same room together. We must ask that question. What's the question? What happens to love after the wedding? What happens to love after the wedding? That's the question a lot of people are asking today. That's the question people who are divorced are asking today. That's the question married people who are having problems in their marriage, they're asking today. They're saying, listen, he was in love with me before we got married. Before we wedded, she loved me. She respected me. Before we wedded, he loved me. He respected me. But I don't know what has happened to us after the wedding. That's what married people are asking. That's what divorced people are asking. They're asking that question of their pastor. They're asking that question of the counselor, marriage counselor. They're asking that question of their friends. They're saying, I don't understand what has happened to us. When we were pursuing each other, he pursued me with all that he had. Now he can barely stand me. What happens to... Oh, I want to hear you say that. What happens to what? What happens to love after the wedding? We need to do a forensic investigation. Somebody said forensic investigation. What that means, we need to analyze this thing, analyze it well, because something happens to... Oh my goodness, I remember preaching a sermon in Harry's wedding. It just came to me now. Now that we found love, what are we going to do? Oh, am I connecting to anyone here? Oh, I used to like rap growing up in university. In fact, they called me Kumode. I used to do a little bit of rap. Don't ask me to rap in church. I like to preach. And I remember Kumode singing a song. I remember that rap song by Heavy D. It was Heavy D. I remember Heavy D singing a song. And now that we found love, what are we going to do with it? Have anybody heard that song before? Now that we found love, what are we going to do with it? So now that we found love, what are we going to do with it? And it's important to ask that question, because something happens to love after the wedding. Love is never the same again after the wedding. To some, it is. There's a handful of people who their marriage is incredible. There's a handful of people who their marriage even gets better after the wedding. But I can tell you 80% of the people is a nightmare. So we must ask the question, what happens to love after the wedding? Let's begin by doing some little diagnosis. Let's begin by leaving the arena of love. And let's go into the arena of languages. I'll come back to this sermon. Let's digress a bit. Arena of languages. When you're born, you're generally born and you pick up your parents' language. Am I right? You pick up the language that your father or your mother, whatever they spoke, you naturally pick that language up. Am I making sense this morning? So if your father spoke, they spoke Ibibio, then do you ever remember learning your native language? No, you just have it. If they spoke Yoruba, you just have spoken. If they spoke English, you just spoke it. So that language becomes your natural language. That language becomes your natural language. So we have languages. We have English. We have French. We have all the Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, Ibibio, Chinese or Mandarin. We have all these languages. I want you to understand this, and then we'll go back into marriage. So now you know that when you have your natural language and you run into someone who cannot speak your language, and there is no language that you have in common. Somebody say language in common. There's no language you have in common. It is difficult to do what? Difficult to do what? It's difficult to do what? Communicate. You start doing sound language. Sound language. It's difficult to communicate. Am I right or wrong? If he can only speak Chinese and he can only speak English, then communication is what? Communication is what? There are things you want to communicate, you can't communicate. Now, the only solution to that problem Are you getting what I'm saying? The only solution to that linguistic problem is that one person must understand the native language of the other person and learn how to do what? Learn how to do what? Learn how to speak it. If we are going to communicate, then I must understand that this guy only speaks Igbo. That was why when the missionaries first came to Africa, do you know the first thing they did? You know one of the first things they did? They began to do what? They began to learn the language or teach the people, because you are not going to go far in any endeavor if you don't have a common language of communication. Is that linguistics? Where the same thing happens in marriage. Are you listening to me, someone? The same thing happens in marriage. And here's the revelation. Listen now, I'm going very technical now. The same thing happens in marriage. And when it comes to marriage, I'm not talking about physical languages. Yeah? And this is not about whether she speaks Igbo. No. In marriage, you are going to understand that your emotional love language and the love language of your spouse are different. I'm going to explain. By the time I finish this sermon, you'll see why you have problems or why you don't have problems. Let me say that again. From what we have seen in linguistics, where if you don't have the same language, if I'm speaking Chinese and you're speaking English, then it's not going to work. It's the same thing in marriage. Remember the first sermon I preached? I said God made them what? God made them what? God made them. Everybody remember the love and respect sermon? God made them what? Different. And that different is not just that one has this, one has this, one. No. It's a difference. Very spiritual difference, and that difference includes difference in what I call their emotional love language. Somebody say emotional love language. So like people who don't share the same language must go and learn the language of the other. The same way that a missionary arrives in Calabar and needs to go and learn Calabar, or needs Calabar people to learn English, is the same way that you have a tax, and that tax is to understand the emotional love language of your spouse and learn it, because the moment you can speak somebody's language. Let me give you an example. You run into one house, a Fulani guy, and you open your mouth and you say Salam Alaikum in Fulani accent. They will stop. You know why? Why? Because something happens when we speak the same language. And it's the same thing with your husband. When he starts manifesting, somebody say manifesting. Men can manifest. It's not just, in the Bible, you read the book of the Acts will talk about a man in the Bible who was, we can manifest. So when the man starts manifesting, but you're a wise wife. You sat under this sermon and you've picked up the 5 emotional love languages. You know his love language. Right? When he begins to manifest, what do you do? What do? You speak his love language. You speak his love language. Somebody says, speak his love language. When she begins to, sulk and wants to go silent, wants to give you the silent treatment for 1 week, 1 month, like some of the sisters do, and you are a wise man who knows how what? Who knows how what? You know how what? Emotional love language. And all you need to do is to start doing what? You speak that love language and the dynamics changes. Somebody said the dynamics changes. So our task this morning as married people, or people who are going to get married, is to understand the 5 love languages. Not only are you going to understand the 5 love languages, you are going to start asking yourself, what is the primary emotional love language of my spouse? Oh, I don't feel like is anybody getting what I'm saying? People look like they're bored, and listen, this is a key. I was researching this sermon. I called my wife. I said, listen, I want to apologize for a few things, just researching this sermon, because even me, I began to get reversed. I called her. I said, listen, we missed it here. We made a mistake here. We had a problem here. It was just a case of not understanding her emotional love language, and she didn't understand my own emotional love language. And so when we have issues, she's speaking Chinese, I'm speaking English. And I can tell you for a lot of marriages here, that's what's going on in your marriage. That's why you say, Pastor, she does not understand what I'm saying. Because you haven't spoke her language. Well, he doesn't understand what I'm saying because you haven't spoke his language. So let's move very quickly. We are going to look at there are 5 emotional love languages. Somebody say emotional love languages. There are about 5. It can increase. You could take this sermon and expand it. But today we are going to look at 2 only. We are going to look at 2 only. So the first emotional love language is words of affirmation. Words of affirmation. Somebody say words of affirmation. Let me explain what I mean. It was Mark Twain who said, Mark Twain said, and you know Mark Twain, he said something funny but very deep. Anybody heard of Mark Twain before? It's all great quotes but very, very funny. Mark Twain said, I can live for 2 months on a good compliment. Let me say that again. Mark Twain says, things can be going bad in my life, but if you pay me a good compliment, that good compliment can sustain me for 2 months. He said, I can live for 2 months on a good compliment. Proverbs chapter 8 verse 21, that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. First emotional love language is words of what? Words of what? Affirmation. Let me tell you why this is important. A couple went to go and see a marriage counselor. The man opened his mouth and began to complain. You know his complaint was, what his complaint was. He said, I walk my ass off. Sorry for that blunt language. He said, I walk my ass off to support this family. They're having tension. They're about divorcing. There's a problem in the marriage. So they're going to see a counselor. The man said, I walk my butts off to support this family. Right? But she never ever appreciates it. She never appreciates it. That's his problem. That's his problem. And that is a problem because the wife did not understand that his primary emotional love language is what? Words of what? Affirmation. Yeah, that's what he's saying. He's saying, I do everything I do in this house. She never appreciates it. She never says thank you. Now, if you ask that woman, she will tell you, I clean the house. She will tell you, I do this in the house. She will tell you, I do that in the house. Those things are important, but those things are not the language he's speaking. His language is words of what? Affirmation. Have you ever seen somebody, maybe your son or something, and then you affirm them, and suddenly they calm down? That's ever happened to you before? Somebody's maybe your husband, and then you affirm you, honey, you're a good man, and suddenly 100 degrees centigrade comes to 10 degrees centigrade. Has that ever happened to you? You know what you just did? You know what you just did? You have just spoken his emotional love language. You've just spoken his emotional love language. So let's break the words of affirmation. Let's just look at a few examples. Because I can bet you now that if I pull some men out here and say, what's the biggest problem in your marriage? Why is there tension in your marriage? And I've heard it many times. I've heard counsel people say, Pastor, it doesn't matter what I do in this house. You can see as I'm saying, like, my muscle is shaking. Somebody's saying, Pastor, are you talking about yourself? It doesn't matter what I do in this house. She never does what? Appreciates it. That's his emotional love language. And that's it. And listen, you could do all the things you're doing. He doesn't feel you appreciate what he's doing. And there's a disconnect between you and him. Are you getting what I'm saying? I'll come to the women in a few minutes. So let's look at it. Just a few, just a few casual words of affirmation. Are you listening? Just a few types of words of affirmation. Let's look at verbal compliments. That's one type of words of affirmation. Verbal compliment. Look at examples. Look at this. I want to ask any woman here this morning. You came to church with your husband. Look at Patrick, how sharp he looked. Look at Barrister, how sharp he looked. Look at Carlo, how white he looks. I bet you, if I challenge your wives this morning and say, listen, did you ever stop and say, bro, man? No, is it bro? I don't know what you call your wife. Oh, yeah. So look at, you look sharp in that suit. But let me tell you, when he was pursuing you, you said it. Remember what we're trying to what are we trying to investigate? What happens to love after what? When he was pursuing you, even if you wore rag, he turned up in your house with tattered. He turned up in your house tattered. You still found a way to say, man, you look like Bob Marley, man. You look like Bob Marley. Man, Rasta man, you look like you find a way. Listen, he looked like a devil one time you met him, but you found man, I like that. You found a way to do what? Compliment. Why are we not doing it now? We wonder what happens to love after this is what happens to it. We don't understand that the man's emotional love language is words of affirmation. Look at that. You look sharp in that suit. Wow, you look so beautiful in that dress. I can see a lot of beautiful sisters here tonight, this morning. I wonder how many women today that their husband said that this morning. But I bet you when he was pursuing you, right? Even if you look like a monkey in the morning, I bet you now. I can tell you now. I can tell you that even if you look like something from Hammerhead of Horrors, horror movie, he still found a way to, man, I like that. Yeah. You look so beautiful in that dress. I really appreciate you washing dishes tonight. The man washes dishes in Africa. This is Africa. He washes dishes. Take it, discuss. Doesn't matter. Thank you for paying that school fees this term. No, for some women, no, you paid it. Now, is it not your job? It's your job. It's your job. You paid it. Now should we again thank you? This man, should we thank you again for doing your job? It's your job now. That's why he goes to the office. The secretary brings him a cup of tea and thanks him for drinking it. The secretary that looks like a monkey compared to you. You're wondering, why is he running after that monkey? Look at me, pastor, with my Brazilian hair. Look at me. Why is he running after that monkey? You know why? Because you bring a cup of tea to him and thank him for drinking it. Thank you for drinking it. So we wonder what happened to love after the wedding. This is it. That's what happened to love after the wedding. It's not a mystery. Somebody says it's not a mystery. It's not a mystery. So you can look at the other one. Thank you for paying the school fees. Thank you for taking the bean bag out. It's not a big thing in Nigeria, but in England, man, my wife would say, can't you smell the bean? It's the man's job in the house to take the bean out. But compliment him. Somebody say compliment him. So here is let's move very quickly. So a woman comes to a marriage counselor and says, Dr. Chapman, so listen, I've been telling my husband to paint. There's a room in their house. I've been telling him to paint it for 9 months. To paint that room for 9 months, and for 9 months he hasn't done it. He keeps making excuses. He hasn't done it. He said, I'm having enough. I'm having. Dr. Chapman asked the woman, it's okay. He hasn't painted that room. Say yes. And he asked the woman, he said, are there other things he does? She said, yes, he does this, he does that, he does that. He said, have you verbally complimented him for all the other things he's doing? She said, no. Dr. Chapman said, listen, don't ask him again to paint that room. Go home now and start complimenting him for the other things. She did that for 1 month, and one day she came back, the man has gone to paint the room. You know why? Because you just spoke to him in his what? Emotional love language. Are you getting what I'm saying? So verbal compliments, one, emotional love language, encouraging words. And it's vice versa, encouraging words. Encouraging words. You're going to encourage her? You're going to encourage him? Have you noticed that you could be having a crisis, and then you encourage him, and suddenly the atmosphere changes? Huh? Are you getting what I'm saying? So, verbal compliments, encouraging words. When was the last time you paid an encouraging word, said an encouraging word to your husband? Encourage them. When was the last time you encouraged your wife? So encouraging words and kind words. Somebody say kind words. The Bible says that love is kind, right? Love is kind. Love is kind. If love is kind, love can be expressed by kind words. Somebody say kind words. Proverbs chapter 15 verse 1. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh reply stirs up anger. Let me ask you, wife, husband, have you figured out what the emotional love language of your spouse is? And I'm going to go personal with me and Claudine. I can tell you a few things so it will help you. This is a practical sermon. Have you figured out, do you know his emotional love language? Do you know that thing that once you connect with him on that level, everything changes? I know some people are thinking, Pastor, my emotional love language is Amala. Once I see Amala, I'll sell my soul. Have you found what his emotional love language is? Humble words. There are women that all they need to hear you do, and they'll calm down, is they hear you say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And suddenly, it's like, what happened to you? I just said I'm sorry. And it changes the atmosphere. For some men, it's the same thing. They hear their wife say, I'm sorry. And the argument ends. So the first emotional love language that you need to figure out is somebody say words of affirmation. Are you getting now? So that could be your husband's emotional love language. That could also be what? Your wife's emotional. I don't know. You have to figure it out. You got to figure it out. Now let's go to the second one, and then we can wrap this up. And I can use myself and Claudine as an example. A lot of the things I'm preaching here today, I've made mistakes in them. So some of these things I have done, some of these things nobody taught me this. And I'm thinking, man, somebody should have taught me this 2002, 2003. But you're getting it. And some of you are not even married, and you're getting it. Are you listening to what I'm saying? So the second emotional love language is quality time. So let me explain. That woman who went and reported to a counselor that I've been telling my husband to do what? To paint a room, and he hasn't done it for 9 months. And the man says, listen, stop telling him to do that again. Just start complimenting him for the things he's doing. Yeah? That woman did that. And the man painted the room. So this marriage counselor called the woman and said, okay, he's done it now. But I notice your marriage is still having problems. Your husband is happy, because what then happened was the husband became happy. Just imagine what can happen in a marriage when there's an atmosphere of compliment, an atmosphere of kind words, yeah, an atmosphere of affirmation, right? So for the man, that was his emotional love language. And the moment the wife began to compliment, began to praise, began to affirm him, he was happy, but the wife wasn't happy. You know why the wife wasn't happy? Because that was not her primary emotional love language. So they were complimenting each other. So, you look good today. Well, thank you for paying the school fees. And as they were both doing it, the person who began to change faster was the man. You know why? Why? Because that was his emotional love. When he comes back to his house, he's now feeling like a king. He didn't used to feel that way before. He only had to go to work to be treated like a king. But now when he got back home, the wife is now, man, you're this, you're that. So he was the one that began to respond positively, because that language was what? His language. But that wasn't the wife's primary emotional language. So the wife went back to the counselor and said, counselor, you said we should, start complimenting, and we began to compliment each other. He's changing. He's happier. He's not doing more. But I'm still not happy. The counselor said, why are you not happy? She said, he works hard. He pays the bill. I compliment him. He's bought us a car. He's bought us a house. He's taking us, he's buying things for us. But what's the point buying all these things when we are never together to enjoy it? That statement tells you what her emotional love language is. You know what her emotional love language is? Quality time. And that's Claudine. That's my wife. Claudine would tell me for years of marriage, say, listen, I've told you, yeah, you've done this, you've done that. She would tell me, she said, from the beginning of this relationship, I told you I don't want your money. And I can understand this was a high-flying woman in England. I don't want your money. I don't want your house. We lived in her flat when we got married. She said, I've told you that all I want from you is what? Is what? Quality time. So it's not that she's not happy that I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. But what she's communicating is that my primary love language is what? Is quality time. So you could buy a car, thank you. You could buy me, thank you. You could see other, you could see gifts. There's some people, their love language is what? It's gift. So my wife is not gift. It's quality. Somebody say quality time. So you are work from morning till 11. Then you come back, you expect me to be happy. Oh yeah, you bought this, you bought that. She's not, and you know the love and respecting. She's not happy, and you're thinking I've worked hard in this house, and you're still not happy, right? Meanwhile, you've worked hard in this house, but you have not spoken her love language. So she said, listen, what's the point having this duplex, having this car, having all these toys, but my husband's never home. We never spend time together. We never spend time together. That's why people in this church will tell you, the moment I discovered this, I remember telling the church, I don't answer my phone calls on Tuesday. Pastor, what's happening? They know. I said, Tuesday is Claudine's time. It's her time. I'm just going to, and I'm going to tell you what quality time is. So let's even look at what is quality time. By quality time, I mean giving someone your undivided attention. Now, it is not sitting on the couch watching TV together. You think, okay, Pastor, we're going to sit on the couch watching TV together. That's not quality time. When you're watching TV together, your attention is on the what? On the TV. It's on the TV. And you say, Pastor, I spent time with my wife watching TV and she's still complaining. This woman, you're still complaining. No. In her mind, that's not quality time, oh. Because it's TV you're watching, oh. You're watching TV, not me. So for her, quality time is giving her undivided attention. Quality time is sitting on the couch with the TV off. Looking at each other. I'm talking and giving each other undivided attention. Just talking. We're just by ourselves. Talking. You could be talking nonsense. No, you could be talking nonsense. And it doesn't have to be 10 hours. But she gets the impression that this moment, I own this moment with you. And you're wondering, well, I bought this. I bought you this. Your birthday, I gave you gift. Right? Now, you'll find next week that there are women who their primary love language is what? Is gift. And when you buy them gifts, everything changes. But if it's a woman whose primary love language is quality time, it doesn't matter how many gifts you buy, they will still be complaining. Anybody listen to me? Am I connecting this morning? You know, I know it might not sound, but that is the truth. Have you, quality time is sitting on the couch with the TV off, is the phone off. Do you know how many marriages have been scattered by phone? I'll tell you now. Marriages. You have a chat with, and I'll give you too. Phone. Emmanuel, turn that phone off. And we're having a conversation. Turn that phone off. You know, you're always on the phone. That's not quality time. It means taking a walk, just the two of you, or going out to eat and looking at each other and talking. Just you, both of you. Just both of you. Yeah? Somebody said just the two of us. Somebody said just the two of us. Just the two of us. That's what quality time is. You know, it's just us. It's us. Something we do together. And as I said, it doesn't have to be 10 hours. It doesn't have to be a million hours. But it's just that every now and then you make out time. And sometimes the quality time is what the man needs too. But most often, the ones who quality time is their primary love language is what? Is what? The women. Are you agreeing with me? It's the women. And that's why, listen, I've bought the house, I've paid school fees, I've done this, I have account for that, for her, I put money in there, and she's still not happy. You think, come on, pastor, what can ever make this woman happy? Learn her primary love language. And her primary love language is quality time. Okay, let me teach you a few skills for maintaining quality time. When you're spending that time with your husband or your wife, maintain eye contact when your spouse is speaking. I've failed in this area too, because I'm trying to do quality time with my wife, and I'm talking to her. You hear her say, Emmanuel, you're not here. And she's right. I'm in church. I'm in my sermon. She knows. She can look in my eyes and know you're not here. She just asked me a question, and I'm giving an answer to the one she asked 10 minutes ago. She knows. And she gets resentful. She begins to think, I'm fighting, other people have you. Your church has you. The other people have you. Me and the children, we don't have you. Then she grows resentful. That's what happens. Your office people, they have you. She knows. So somebody say maintain eye contact. So you're talking to her, maintain eye contact with her. And I failed in this area many times. Don't listen to your spouse and do something else at the same time. You know, back in England, so we go on holiday. My wife likes long holidays, so she could do holiday from a week. Let me tell you, once holiday don't pass 2 days. 2 days. 2 days. Why would I be in Malaga, in a beach, the water just, nothing changes in the beach. It's water. The water comes. Have you gone to Bar Beach? I don't understand these women. I just don't understand it. There is nothing different in a beach. The water goes, and if you're not careful, you go with the water. The water comes, the water goes, and we're lying on the beach in Malaga, doing what? I don't get it. Up till today, I don't get it. I don't get it. And so suddenly, I bring my phone up. I start ringing London. She said, but it's a holiday. I said, yeah. It's a holiday, but it's 3 days now in a beach. What are we doing? What is just so you can't say you're spending quality time with her when you are not physically and emotionally present. And they get it. They know you're not there. They know your church is more important than this family. They know your work is more important than us. I'm telling you. And so she's not happy. You think I've done? No. Don't listen to your spouse and do something else at the same time. Listen for feelings. Ask yourself, what emotion is my spouse experiencing? You could be talking to her and she's talking, but you know she's angry. And you don't even notice. You know she's afraid. You don't even notice. Quality time means you're not just listening to the words. Yeah? But you're also trying to understand her feelings. Somebody say understand her feelings. Listen for her feelings. Ask yourself, what emotion is my wife experiencing? Observe her body language. You walk into the house and observe her body language. And when she's talking, refuse to interrupt. So, for this woman, whose primary emotional love language is quality time, she will appreciate all the other things you do, But she'll still remain what? Remain what? She'll remain unhappy because you're not speaking her what? You're not speaking her what? Oh, is anyone getting what I'm saying this morning? She remain unhappy because you're not speaking her language. Let's look at the third one, and I can close it here. Then there are other people that their emotional love language is gift. Gift. This generation is a gift. iPhone 5, iPhone 10. When they told me the value of iPhone, I said, listen, I can buy land in the Ikorodu with this money. But there are people, are you getting what I'm saying? There are people who their emotional love language is what? Is gift. Somebody say gift. It is gift. It is gift, and it doesn't have to be an expensive gift. For them, the fact that you went out and got me a dress and got me a shoe or got me something, for them, that's how you show them love. Are you getting what I'm saying? A man came and said, Pastor, I don't know how, I love this. This man said, I don't love her. I don't love her, but I love her. I said, okay, how do you can't show love to someone if you don't understand their love language. That's why you say, I love her, but she never gets satisfied. See that woman never satisfied? Because you've not spoken her love language. Claudine is not gift. In fact, the first blunder I made in this marriage was ordering flour. I'm at work. Valentine is coming. I'm trying to, I like to always, it's a swagger, isn't it? I ordered flour from work. Ordered it from work. Flour. I forgot that there's still an African blood in that woman. I ordered flour. And I'm waiting to be praised. I thought that day I'll be enthroned. I'll be enthroned on high. But let me tell you something. That day I ended up in a valley. I ordered flour. A bunch of flour. They delivered it. I returned home like a king. And I walked in, and I could see that her face was, I'm thinking, hi, this woman, nothing I do in this house. Hi, nothing I do in this house. Number one is gift is not her emotional love language. And if you even must buy gifts, is it flour? The money I spent ordering that bunch of roses with all the other things that came with it, if I had not spent that money, and I said, Q, Saturday, I'm going to off my phone and we will do whatever you like us to do, it would have paid me more, because I would have just been speaking her what? Love language. So when you say, I don't know how to, Pastor, I love my wife, she said I don't know, or I love my husband, but he says I don't love him, it's because you have not taken time to do what? Taking time to do what? So let me end this here. I'm going to ask 3 people a question. Dennis, what's your wife's love language? Harry, prepare an answer for me. Harry, prepare an answer for me. Don't hide. He's hiding. Brian, get an answer ready for me. Dennis, from what I've taught this morning, where would you say your wife falls into as her emotional love language? Number 3, gift. You know that. That's her love language. Can we applaud Dennis? Can we applaud Dennis? Muyin, what would be Carlos' love language? I've just given you 3, I've not given you the 5. What would be his love language? And I want some of these quiet people, nobody's stay there and wasting time. Sister Misade, what would be Patrick's love language? So let's start from who was the first person I gave? Okay, give us. What's Brian's? What do you think from knowing? You just married him for 2 years, right? About 2 years. What do you think is his primary emotional love language? 3 of them. What is the priority? What would you think is the one that? Quality time. He likes to spend time with you. Well, that's very good. Can we appreciate Sister Okay this morning? Muyin, yes. Carlos' love language. He has 2. Words of affirmation, okay? And quality time. Words of affirmation. So which is a priority? Words of affirmation. So that's, he likes to be affirmed, complimented. Yeah. Okay. Let's appreciate Sister Misade. Yes. Words of affirmation. He likes to be praised, affirmed, respect. Okay. Very good. Now my love language. Words of affirmation. Pastor Ekushel, I could live on that for 6 months. 6 months. 6 months. I hear it 6 months, I'm going. My wife's one is quality time. Money is not her thing. Just spend time with us. Can we appreciate God this morning? Let's appreciate God this morning.